Hola a todos! Today we are going to discuss the use of a with gustar. So a quick relevant recap for those of you who need it is gustar with an infinitive verb. We use gustar with an infinitive verb to express activities we like or do not like to do. When we are using gustar with an infinitive, we will always use the third person singular conjugation, which is gusta. Perhaps one of the most crucial elements of this type of structure is the use of the IOP or indirect object pronoun before the word gusta, and we choose that based on who, quote unquote, does the liking, which really we know is to whom that activity is enjoyable. Moving on to today's topic. Sometimes when we are using the structure gustar, it will become necessary to use this additional structure on top of it in order to avoid confusion within a conversation. This can be particularly necessary when we are using the third person forms, which are le and les. For example, le gusta leer libros could really mean three different things. We could be saying he likes to read books, she likes to read books, or you formally like to read books. Why is this the case? The key is going to be looking back at that IOP chart and then comparing it to the subject pronouns. So if you look at the spot for le, you will see that it corresponds to él, ella, and usted. So that means we have to be pretty specific in these cases in order to avoid confusion. As a result, it's going to be sometimes helpful or maybe even necessary to add this structure that we're about to see to clarify who we're talking about. The structure to clarify or emphasize a gustar construction would be adding a plus the subject or subject pronoun in front of it. This will allow us to specify the name of the person. For example, a Dora le gusta leer libros, or a Jaime Camil le gusta leer. So there are a bunch of different options that we can use following the a. We can start with a subject pronoun. Some examples are a él, a ella, a usted, a nosotros, etc. Keep in mind that the a él and the a ella, the only time that I would say that actually clarifies anything is if in our conversation we're discussing, for example, a guy and a girl, and then you mention that somebody likes something and to specify, oh, it's the guy that likes this, or he likes it, or she likes it, or whatever. But otherwise, unless we know the name of the person we're discussing, that is not going to help you really any. There are only two irregulars when you are doing a plus a subject pronoun. The only two that change that are irregular would be yo, which goes to a mí. You cannot say a yo. And tú, you can't say a tú, you would say a ti. Another option would be to do a plus a name. So we have a Lupita, a Enrique, a Gerardo y a Noel, etc. And the final option would be a followed by a noun or a title. So some examples would be al doctor, a mi mamá, a la chica, al perro, a la profesora, etc. One thing to be careful of, remember that this a plus whatever construction is usually, it's not going to be required in most situations. But if you are going to mention the person, keep in mind that, one, you have to have the a before it, and two, you still need the appropriate indirect object pronoun before the verb gustar. For example, you cannot say, Rodrigo le gusta montar en bicicleta, well, because you're missing the a before his name. And you cannot say, a Rodrigo gusta montar en bicicleta, because you have dropped the le, which is necessary. Keep in mind that this structure is a complement. This is supposed to go along with the previous gustar structure, not in place of it. Just some quick examples of when you might want to use this structure. The first use is for clarification purposes. So in our example conversation, we have Lupita saying, ¿Qué te gusta hacer en tu tiempo libre? What do you like to do in your free time? Juan says, Me gusta jugar al fútbol. I like to play soccer. And Lupita comes in and says, A mi hermano le gusta jugar al fútbol también. My brother also likes to play soccer. So this is the first time mi hermano is being mentioned. You can just imagine this is the first time she is bringing him up in conversation. So in order to introduce him and be clear, we need to put the a before his name. Another really good use of this structure is when you are trying to add emphasis. Here we have Alicia saying, me gusta mucho bailar. She says, I like to dance a lot. And then Martín says, ¿En serio? A mí no me gusta para nada. For real? I don't like it at all. Martín's addition of a mí is adding emphasis to the fact that he doesn't like to do what Alicia just said she does like to do. So he's kind of highlighting the difference between them. One example of when you just don't need to use this is when the subject is already known. Here we have Pedro saying, Juana es muy buena persona. And Javier replies, sí, es muy simpática. Le gusta mucho pasar un rato con amigos. Here, Pedro introduces Juana into the conversation, and Javier continues talking about her. So, since she's already been mentioned, we don't need to keep saying her name every single time we want to talk about her, because we already know who we're discussing, and it's just the logical flow of conversation. So one final thing for you to pay attention to and be careful of is that this a plus blank construction is not going to be used for every single Spanish verb. This is only going to be used for what we call gustar type verbs, which are not particularly common. I think we're only going to look at like 2 this year. So for example, the other verb that we already know, ser, you are not going to put a before the verb ser. This will only need to be used with verbs that have this weird backwards construction. So I would say José es de Florida, not a José es de Florida. All right, guys, that's it for today. Don't forget to complete the activities that relate to this lesson. Adiós, amigos. Bye-bye.